Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today here on the new American media, because the old American media has failed you. This is the Unhappy Hour. Oh, yes, this is the place finally cranking out the Unhappy Hour content right now. So excited for a new Cleveland Browns season. Very excited to have two special guests today. One of them we are trying to get in the studio. I see them there. I see Zak Baris. He's in there. Zak, can you hear me? Are you
Yes.
in the studio?
Yeah, Brian, I can hear you.
Perfect. Do you have a video, or are we doing audio?
I'm a little under the weather today, so I don't want to do video. I've been sick for the last 5 days, so.
Perfect. Zak will be the floating, disembodied head of the voice. But Zak has been a longtime contributor to the Unhappy Hour show. We have a million stories. Go back in the archives. Zak and I have been talking sports for about 13 years. You can find him on Twitter at Z Baris. Also, this is John Telich. John, I lost track at 11 Emmy Awards. Did we cap at 11?
We kind of stalled there, Brian. I think that's probably that ship has sailed, my friend. So thanks for even mentioning that to an old TV guy. It's funny. I used to do a weekly segment with Kiley and Booms here in Cleveland on 92.3 The Fan. And Kevin Kiley back then, this was like 11 years ago or so, I think, whenever the Fan began. And when they brought me on, Roth, Andy Roth, the guy who runs the station there, wanted me to be on with Kevin and with Booms. And so we set it up and we started pretty much the first few weeks that they were on the air. So I think they just celebrated 13 years. So long story short, the drought began 13 years ago, because right before I started, I had updated my resume to reveal the most recent whatever. And he mentioned that. And then he would proceed to, anytime he introduced me, John 11 time, blah, blah. And so after a while, I would just tell Andy Roth, you don't have to he doesn't have to say that stuff. He says, no, he likes to do it. Then like 2 or 3 years later, he's just ripping the heck out of me because, hey, you're stalled. What's going on here? How come you haven't won anymore? Well, guess what? Here we are 13 years later, and I'm still sitting there at 11. It's probably, since I retired, it's probably going to stay there, which is fine with me. How you doing, Zak?
Good.
Zak,
how about you? Finally, I decided I'll put on the video. So.
All right, man. You look great. You look fantastic.
I've been nursing a cold since last Friday, so.
Not fun.
Yeah, my problem was I went out Saturday. I couldn't avoid the air show. Went out on the boat Saturday, and I did a tie up, but still was actually very well behaved. Just taking Tylenol all day. So
yeah,
but it killed me for the rest of the weekend.
Gotcha.
Well, you got me thinking now. You got me thinking about being outside. I have hear it in the background. I don't know if we can sort of see it. That is Cleveland Browns Stadium. And
you can see downtown Cleveland behind me. It's just too sunny. I'm 29 floors up. So.
Look at that. Look at that. Well, breaking news, the stadium is getting a name change. We're old enough to remember several name changes for all of our teams. Zak, starting with you, any thoughts on the new naming rights? And obviously, we're going to tie that into what may or may not happen in Brook Park.
It's a step in the right direction for the new stadium. I can tell you this right now from someone works in real estate development downtown has some contacts with the Browns. I'll say that. And we are actively, it's funny. Obviously I'm friendly with Ken Prendergast, the Neotrans reporter, very familiar with his stuff. And, it's funny, he runs some things by me, and we're always talking. And, the original site, the Browns preferred site actually for the new stadium was always either Burke or St. Clair and 18th and Lakeside. But the problem was, obviously, we know how impossible it is to claim eminent domain without being in a lawsuit. If you look at the corner of West 25th and Detroit for the last few years, and the current stadium really, if you look at it, is deteriorating faster than any other stadium in the NFL based on its location. That's the issue with it. It was built cheaply. They built it in under 3 years. You know how impossible it is to build a stadium in under 3 years. Jacobs Field was built in almost 4. Yeah. Gund Arena was built in, I believe, 3.5. And the stadiums take a while to build. And when you build something on old infrastructure where you really didn't do the environmental studies necessary, you wanted a team for the 99 stadium. Well, now you're paying the price. I mean, don't forget in 14 when the Browns redid that stadium, It was a state-of-the-art stadium. Brown Stadium was when they renovated First Energy Stadium for the 2014 season. At least the lower deck was. Upper deck was 2015. And you go there now, and I mean, it's one of the worst stadiums in the NFL, other than Buffalo, but they've got a new one. I would say we're better than Cincinnati. I was there last year. I think we're right on par with Baltimore, but Baltimore's got a $500 million renovation going in right now.
Yeah.
So, you look at a stadium that's very similar that was built around the same time, Pittsburgh, much bigger lower deck, wider concourses. The areas, it was a very similar area in terms of walkability, not having the land bridge. I was at the game last year. I was stunned by the amount of development around the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't a lot of parking lots anymore, a lot of development. Reminds me of Cincinnati's over the Rhine development over by their stadium. And the Browns, to be honest with you, the stadium right now just, people are like, oh, it connects downtown. It doesn't do anything to downtown. It is, doesn't. I live over in Playhouse Square downtown, and it is a 30-minute walk to the stadium. I got to walk down East 9th, and it should be just get to the corner of East 9th and go take the land bridge. But we don't have that anymore. It's not feasible to have a stadium directly on the lake. It's not. My personal opinion is right now is you have to have a current stadium with a ton of parking down there. It's not the best fit for the lakefront, despite what anybody says. It's not the best source in use. It's not. Having the stadium in Brook Park, people go, well, what's going to happen to West 6th Street on game day? Okay, well, it's used 8 Sundays a year, really.
Right.
If you go and put the stadium out in Brook Park, where it should be, if you can't find a spot downtown or in the city, ideally, Brook Park is a location. You've got $3 billion addition to the airport coming up starting in December, January. And then you have this. Yeah, you're going to have to worry a little bit if they don't widen the freeway. There's going to be a problem, but there's going to be multiple exits to widen it. You're taking suburban industrial land right now that's not really being used. The idea here is doing some kind of land swap with the city of Cleveland for the tax revenue. Yeah. That makes the most financial sense. You're not going to lose any support downtown. Downtown will be busier than ever, maybe not for 8 game days. However, when you're getting Super Bowls, college football playoffs, NCAA Final Fours, all that kind of stuff, WrestleMania, you're getting events that you wouldn't normally have in Cleveland. Everybody's still going to be staying downtown.
Yeah.
I've been to 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls. The only one I wasn't at was the COVID one in Tampa. And 3 of those Super Bowls were not located in a downtown area. So you had first Miami Gardens, okay? 30 miles away from downtown Miami. Yeah. Pain in the neck to get to, but again, all the Super Bowl activities were in South Beach and Brickell. Then you go to LA. All the events were around downtown, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, even Santa Monica. Game was played in Inglewood. Brian, you're obviously familiar with LA. That's where we met when we both used to live out there.
Yeah. It's a great city. I look forward to visiting again sometime, maybe.
And and then I go to Vegas. And then Phoenix. All the events were in Scottsdale. NFL Experience was downtown at the Convention Center, Phoenix. Game's 40 miles out away in Glendale. Yeah.
So you're saying it's a pretty good fit. It's going to work out good there.
I don't see it being a problem at all. Obviously, they need to increase rapid transit on game day, but I think it directly benefits downtown when you have a development like Gilbert's $3.5 billion development on the riverfront, the Bedrock development, where the Cavs facility and the Cleveland Clinic facility is going up right now. That will directly benefit from the stadium being in Brook Park because people want to get out there on game day. For example, a resident of downtown, I wouldn't want to drive out there.
Right.
I have a parking pass now to Browns games. I have 7 season tickets and a parking pass. I give the parking pass to one of my friends in my group. I have no desire whatsoever to drive down to the stadium, and I never will. I would go take the Rapid if I could on game day to Brook Park. I think it's an area where if you put minimal hotel there, maybe 400 hotel rooms, to service the regular game day population, maybe the team that stays down there, you're still going to bring a lot of people in. I think it directly benefits the city. Obviously, Brook Park, I don't think at the moment is capable of handling such traffic capacity. They don't have the police force to do it, which is why a partnership with the city of Cleveland to increase the tax revenue over there would do it. The Housings are willing to almost privately fund this entire deal. Very little of it. There's no tax increase. There's nothing for the people of Cleveland, for Cuyahoga County, for the state of Ohio. So there's bond financing. There's obviously different creative ways of financing for this project, but there's no tax increase. There's nothing that's going on the ballot. It's a win-win for the city of Cleveland if they're able to partner with the city of Brook Park. Kind of like when Eaton's headquarters moved out of downtown and into Beechwood. Beechwood partnered with the city of Cleveland essentially to retain 50% of the tax revenue for the income tax.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's kind of pause it there and ask John. John, you've been covering the sports for decades and decades. You've been around the same area. Everyone asking, when are they going to develop the waterfront? When are they going to develop the waterfront? And of course, we know that we lost our team and then brought another team back and kind of like built another version of the same old crappy stadium.
Right.
It didn't make sense to me at the time, but here we are. I'm glad we got our team, but God, if we would have just been forward thinking, we could have hosted Super Bowls and wrestling and every major event, and it would be encased and it wouldn't be rusting from all the abuse from being on the water. John, what say you?
Well, first of all, I think your initial question was just about the fact that we're the naming rights. I'm all cool with Huntington Bank. God bless them. More of that kind of money here in Northeast Ohio towards the sports facilities and what have you. So that's great. I just worry about, and I give the Haslam's credit for pretty much taking the bull by the horns and saying, let's do Brook Park. I'm all in favor of going that route. You go with a facility that's tied into the airport with Brook Park. You are able to have world-class events every day of the year, no matter when they are there. We have one of the best organizations in sports these days, the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission. You know what they do. You know what Gilbert does with his group. He's fantastic. He's a small, powerful group that's lean and mean and really fights for what they have. Let's not waste their efforts and have a facility down on the lakefront that's aging and what have you. Let's have a world-class facility that can be tied in towards the airport. That, as you mentioned, Zach, RTA, having a little bit of a synergy between the downtown area and where Brook Park is, and you play football 8 to 10 times a year in Brook Park. And then you'll be able to host so many other things. I just think it makes so much sense. I'm not sure about all the mechanics, the mechanisms involved in terms of the money for the most part, but I like the fact that they came up with the plans. They want to go forward with it. They've been able to say publicly, we're going to give this much to it. I'm sure that number will adjust as time goes on because it's never hard and fast. But by all means, go for the new facility. You mentioned earlier, Zach, about the place where the FBI is, right there by Channel 3, overlooking the lake. That was one of those possible places. I just think the land is available. It's already moving forward in that regard. Get everybody together and do the thing out in Brook Park, and let's move forward, because the longer you wait, the less chances you will have of having great events in your city. So let's maximize the fact that ownership of a team, we've seen it with Gilbert. You mentioned that, Zach. Gilbert doing what he's done in downtown Cleveland with his financial group and all the properties that he's involved in, and the waterfront area there down on the river. Let's go. And there's no reason why this can't go forward, because you've got a guy that's committed money-wise, for the most part, to help make it happen in the ownership of one of your pro sports teams in town.
Well, you kind of touched on something there, John, and I want to pivot off of the stadium itself, because it is speculative at this point. We're still trying to figure it out.
Real quickly, actually. The city, it came out last week, the city's made a last-ditch effort to try to offer up Burke Lakefront Airport with an emergency close with the FAA. We all know that we don't have a runoff airport. People are, why can't Burke? Why can't you shut it down?
Yeah.
Well, you need 6,000 feet of runway space. And that's the issue. Cuyahoga County Airport only has 5,000. I asked Ken Prendergrass last week, I go, why can't they just increase the size? He goes, well, it's something they could do and they should do. But, they've been trying to shut Burke down for years. An emergency shutdown, I think, is going to be very tough. People forget that we also border Canada. And again, Cuyahoga County does not have another runoff airport. That is the issue, is, that's large enough to handle anything.
By the way, pause there. That is just so weird that's a sidebar issue, but to think of Cleveland as a border city, I just
20 miles away from Canadian waters.
Just now, that was like frying pan to the face. I'm seeing the little birdies dance around. Like, Cleveland's a border city. How weird is that?
And the Canadians are taking all our walleye. Damn it! No,
Yeah,
It's a little.
So again, so that's one of the issues right now. The only reason I'm very familiar with the whole shutdown process. Originally, we all know about the Intel plant in Columbus. Well, their first choice wasn't to go to Columbus. It was to go to Lorain County and go on the Lorain County Airport site. That got shut down by the FAA too. No emergency shutdown would take 10 years. That is why the Intel plants and Meta and everything is in Columbus right now, out in New Albany and not in Lorain County. A lot of people don't know that. It was a story that never really came out, but that was the initial issue.
They can't just move out planes. It needs 10 years for this to happen. Go ahead, John.
Well, I just wanted to ask Zach, did you also hear, isn't there something about a battery plant going up there in Lorain? Did I see something written recently about that? I mean, that's not a done deal. That's still speculative, or is
I'm not entirely familiar with that deal, to be honest. I know there was the submarine plant too, but that wasn't on the airport. They're going to put offshoots out in Medina, Lorain, everything for the Intel, within 2 to 3 hours of a drive away. But they've filed, I know, to try to shut down Lorain County Airport. But again, you have to have these reliever airports all over the place. It's FAA regulation. You can't just have, God forbid, something happens at Hopkins, where are these planes going to land, especially commercial airlines. You need a certain amount of runway space for larger aircrafts.
Well, it just seems so sensible that you build a world-class facility by the airport, and the airport also gets its own much-needed case of makeup, lipstick, and all that stuff to make it more attractive to people coming into town. It just seems like very logical. And I worry about the vision, and I don't know if you would speak to this, Zach, at all, but I think that if all of a sudden, let's say they did move the Burke Lakefront, and there was an airport that had the 6,000, that type of space for landing and all that sort of stuff. Do we have the leaders with enough vision in this town to really make that a world-class destination spot right on the lakefront? I don't know.
It all depends on the development team out there too. I actually think Mayor Bibb's done a very good job. I think it's the first time in our city in the last. Don't forget, when he became mayor, I don't think a lot of people understand how backwards the city was. We had a website from the late 90s, from a dial-up website.
What was that? Yeah. Was that Southwest when that hack happened with the airlines? They survived because they're running like Windows from 1990.
Yeah, but the city of Cleveland, up until, I work in the zoning environmental scene too, other than development and construction. I started my company doing zoning environmental work. We used to have to go, we were the only city where we had to go retrieve documents physically downtown.
Wow.
So there was no email request. There was nothing. And when we went to go pick them up, we had to go physically into City Hall and pick them up.
Wow. To be a messenger on a bicycle.
So again, he's done a miraculous job of bringing the city into the 21st century, which could have happened 24 years ago, 23 years ago.
But as we go to all these other cities, there's a city center, there's a stadium, then there's a whole. We have pieces of it, but it is disjointed. If you look at this too, though, you got the Rock Hall. There's so much potential, but it's just.
But Brian, you have to allocate so many parking spaces. Go look at the Bears' new dome they just put out. The renderings. Well, what was the one thing they forgot to include in the renderings that the NFL won't allow, and it got shot down right away? Parking. You can't have a stadium without parking. You've got 70, 80,000 people there on game day. During the Super Bowl, they do not allow parking on site. You are not allowed to park on site during the Super Bowl. So that is one of the things. I'm not sure about the college football playoff if they allow parking on site. But if you look at Houston Stadium, for example, I went down there for the Browns playoff game, has great public transportation down to the stadium.
And by the way, I'm sorry I didn't join you there. I know I almost did.
Thank God you didn't. But we got on free. We're staying over in what is the equivalent to uptown Cleveland, over by like the Intercontinental, over by the Texas Children's Hospital. It's 3-4 miles away. It's right outside of downtown. Took their transit system, which is just like the Rapid. It's free on game day, which I loved.
Should be.
Got on, took the line straight down, was able to walk in the parking lot. Wouldn't even know it's better than walking to Brown Stadium now. I would rather take that train an extra 2-3 miles down to Brook Park.
Right.
And do that. It literally made stops once every half mile, once every mile. We were there in the stadium in 12 minutes, 10 minutes. But that's their game day experience. No traffic getting out
for a Patriots game. And if you've ever been to Foxborough, that's out in the mid, and you got to jump on a double decker.
Yeah, it's on the sticks. Yeah.
It's a whole fiasco.
I think it's closer to Rhode Island than it is to Boston. Yeah.
I think you're right, Zach.
Probably.
If you look at these stadiums nowadays, if you look at the new builds, Arizona, 40 miles away in Glendale,
Sure.
still hosting all major events. You look at LA with SoFi. They've Englewood went from being the worst area of LA.
Oh my God.
You know, you go there now and it's like it's becoming a prosperous area. You know, it's kind of feeding into Culver City, which Culver City 25 years ago was a dump. Look at it now.
Yep.
You know, and all these areas are kind of gentrifying over there. I hate the word gentrification, but if you look at the NFL does not care.
It's like a negative stereotype for painting a building and replacing a dead bush.
Look at San Francisco. San Jose's 50 miles away. They're hosting a Super Bowl. A lot of these stadiums now, Dallas isn't downtown. None of these stadiums seem to be downtown. And it's not having some adverse effect on, you know, population or people coming to the city. It doesn't matter. People don't seem to care. Staying 20 miles away, you're only going to the game there. Your trip is not revolved around the game anymore. It's around the experience downtown in the city. So I still think having this is going to, you know, Indianapolis hosts, I think, 200 plus events at their stadium per year. Am I wrong?
But I've heard I'm not sure that number. I'm not sure.
Some crazy number there.
Indianapolis is a really big convention city for sure.
And it's a convention city. It's the most boring city in America, but it's Columbus without Ohio State.
There you go.
Take Ohio State out of Columbus.
Yep. Yeah, and look at all the events they have there. So it makes so much sense, guys. It really does.
And if you have an event, a multi-use facility that's getting plus, you're right by Berea by the Browns facility now. You're getting, let's just say you get 100 uses out of it a year, or even 70. You know, it makes a lot of sense to do that because you're getting conventions here. You're going to get more NFL events. Hey, maybe the NFL Hall of Fame game moves up to Cleveland from Canton even. You know, you could host 70 plus thousand there when you're only able to host 23,000, 65 miles south. The teams are all staying up here anyway, and all the fans visiting, they're all staying in Cleveland, going to Canton for one of the days.
Exactly. They want to go down there, see the Hall of Fame, but for the most part, as you mentioned, Zach, they're back up here in the Marriott or
the Texans are training at Upper US in Hunting Valley.
Right. Yep. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Gosh, let's see it happen. You know, and I know they got to do the batting the ball back and forth politically speaking, but the Haslams have a plan and are willing to fork over a good chunk of this. Let's go. Let's get this.
Don't drive them out of town is what my point is here. Is let them build what they want to build. They're not asking the world for public funds here. You know, they're not asking for a tax increase. This isn't Clark Hunt in Kansas City that just asked for $800 million of public funds for a tax increase vote that got voted down. This is no vote. We're not sitting here and saying, hey, your income tax increase, your property taxes are increasing to build this in. That's not the case.
Makes sense, man. It really does.
And so, John, you were asking, but are the city leaders forward thinking enough?
Yeah.
That's my point. I think we finally, my point is,
you were starting to answer that. Yeah. And God, I don't even know. When is Justin's term up? Is it in a year and a half from now? I'm not even sure.
Yes, a year and a half, I believe, next November. But I mean, he's going to win the election. I'd be surprised if anybody were even foolish enough to run against him.
Exactly. So let's go. Come on. You know, I just think with what Gilbert's done, getting events in the city, and with the ability to think outside of the box, to have events that you wouldn't normally construe as being perfect for a football-only stadium. Let's go. And what they can do with some of these facilities, you've seen some of the soccer pitches, stadiums across the pond, how they can bring in grass and put it underneath and some kind of terrarium and bring it back up. I mean, there's no, the sky really is the limit. Let's think big here. I mean, so oftentimes we get put in positions in our town where we just say, well, that'll be good enough. Let's make do. No, let's make a statement. Let's have something that the rest of the sports world says.
There's no reason.
Look what Cleveland has.
Yeah, and there's no reason to pump $1 billion into a stadium that's falling apart. That's going to add 10 to 15 years of life. We're going to need a new stadium in 15 years.
It's stupid.
You know, why delay the inevitable? Just go build the stadium now. An outdoor stadium is not going to bring any extra events to the city. We're not in the South. We're not Baltimore where it's 10 to 15 degrees warmer every day than it is here. You know, where the stadium has more longevity than it does here. We just don't have that, unfortunately, in its current location. Progressive Field has aged very well. So is Rocket Mortgage. They've redone them both. And Progressive's in the middle of a renovation, but it's also a mile south. Doesn't endure the weathering that Brown Stadium does, the waves, everything.
Everything.
So
you're right.
Progressive Field's in a much better location. Modell kept the team here in the 90s. Hey, different story, but that's not the case. Yeah. So unfortunately, we're dealing with this now. And again, the other only location I could think of in the city of Cleveland that could handle this kind of infrastructure would be somewhere in Opportunity Corridor. With the interchange over there off 490. I think it could, and it would be a huge boost to Uptown. But again, it's still taking away from downtown. So what's the difference?
Yeah, I think out by the airport makes the most sense. And
Absolutely.
we're already maybe at the quarter mile turn, of this mile race. So let's keep going in that direction.
Perfect. Well, let's keep going with the talk about the Browns. I mean, that was a awesome in-depth deep dive there. I enjoyed that. Thank you, gentlemen. But look, our team, since we came back in '99, it has been getting abused by the weather of reality. But let's remember, we were a playoff team last year. Zach was there at the playoff game in Houston, and John, we haven't seen a lot of playoff football in the past several decades. Let's start with you. We are a playoff team. I don't know exactly how I feel coming into the season. I always predict an undefeated Super Bowl season because, look, everything has gone wrong for us so many times. At one point, maybe we catch lightning in a bottle and everything goes perfect. But I don't know exactly how I really feel about the season. How do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, their defense was so good last year. There's no reason to think that they can't continue to even refine that, make that a better unit. So that held the fort for them while Kevin was trying to make sense out of every other quarterback going down every other week. So kudos to him for adjusting last year and getting them to the point where they got Flacco, and then everything worked great until it didn't work great. But we saw what happened, in the playoff game. So the defense should improve this year. I'm a little worried about Denzel Ward. He doesn't seem to be worried, but I'm a little worried there. I still think there's a little bit more of the ceiling for Miles, as crazy as that sounds. JOK is ascending is a tremendous defensive talent. The quarterbacks, I think MJ Emerson is going to have another big year. I think you're going to talk about him as one of the top cornerbacks in the league. I'm excited about that. And then on the offensive side, certainly it all rides on Deshaun. I mean, that certainly is one of the easiest takes there is in sports, but it does rise on him. Will the Dorsey type of offense be a little bit more to his liking? Well, we're going to find out at 4:25 on Sunday against Micah Parsons and company. Offensively, he's got Judy. Judy in the first game, if we can get down into the micro analysis of this one, he could have a huge game because, first of all, they're missing, a top corner, and they're coming in with a rookie. Rookie could be on Judy. More than likely, Diggs would be on Judy, but maybe Diggs will be on Cooper a lot of the game. So I feel good about the Browns this year. I think they have enough talent to be a team that goes further than they did a year ago, possibly the AFC Championship game. So, I look forward to, more than anything, this is one Brown season. Maybe it's because I'm retired and I'm not invested in it in the other ways that I was when I was day in and day out with the team and, in the locker room and all that sort of stuff. I'm just excited as a, quote, fan to see how well they can play this year. And I think they're going to have a real good year.
Excellent. John, let me pause right there. When you're speaking, I'm getting a little bit of like an audio glitch. I'm wondering if maybe you could disconnect from the feed and jump back in and maybe try the earpiece. You sound fine, but it's like every 5 or 10 seconds, there's like a digital glitch.
Yeah. It's like
okay.
Oh, that is way different. Now it's silent. We're working through this. Okay, you're still silent.
How are we there now? You good?
We're good. Oh, yes. I was going to say something, but why don't you tell us? I have one question queued up, but it's going to take a moment. I don't want to make it too fast here. Say something for the next 10 seconds about the Browns. Okay.
Well, first of all, the Browns this year, they're loaded. I think, some of the skill
sound is back. It's doing back. Audio. Try disconnecting, plugging the headset in, and we'll try it that way. And just jump back into the studio, like click out of it, and then just jump back in. And we will try that. I've tried to fix it on my side, couldn't get it. I'm like, am I hearing that? Is everybody hearing that?
I was hearing it too.
I'm trying to press mute, and then I'm going to the other one. I'm trying to listen. I'm like, is it happening? I don't know. Unless he's a digitized version of himself. We have the hologram version.
Brian, long gone are the days when I used to call you by phone.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of snazzy, isn't it? It's kind of fun.
Hey, how you doing there? Is that
much better?
Is it much?
Yeah.
It appears to be much better. Perfect.
Okay.
Yes. But we heard everything fine. It was just like every 7 seconds, it was like, whoop.
I got you.
So excitement for the season, fellas. Take it away, Zach. What say you? I mean, where do we go? John was saying
I'm nervously excited for the season. Like John said, the defense, I'm not worried about the defense. We have a ton of depth. You know, the secondary is loaded. You have a healthy Juan Thornhill this year. Grant Delpit's healthy. Rodney McLeod's back. You get another year out of Emerson. You know, again, the health of Denzel Ward is always going to be a question.
Always.
You know, if Newsome can stay there too, you know, obviously Newsome is significantly better when Ward is in the lineup.
Yeah.
You know, Emerson's on an island of his own. He's fantastic.
Yeah,
you know,
Jordan didn't do very well without Pippen. I mean, everybody's better when
you have 2 new additions at linebacker this year too.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be interesting to see what Jim Schwartz could do with Devin Bush and, you know, and Hicks coming over from Minnesota. You know, the defensive line is pretty much the same as it was a year ago. I mean, you added Michael Hall Jr., but he's on the NFL exempt list right now. So who knows if we'll even see him this year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I just think that, you know, the opportunities have not been that frequent in the new era. Here we are 25 years into it.
Yeah.
But this is really a chance for them to go a long way. And, you know, they went out and spent, obviously you can say all you want about what they did with Watson and the guaranteed contract. And, you know, they just ponied up some cash here to change some of his contract so that, you know, they could push some of that big cap number down to 25 and to 26, which is significant in its own right. And I'm just curious to see how this offense is going to be really a fascinating thing as the year goes along. They've got a solid backup, I think, in Winston, and you got a young kid, you know, developing that possibly we could see this year as well.
You alluded to this earlier. You said, you know, last year Stefanski's there trying to finagle working with 4 different quarterbacks in the room.
Yeah.
This year you have your quarterback going into the year set in the room. It's like 2 years ago you knew Brissett was going to be the starter. You had your backup ready to roll. Last year you went in there with, you know, PJ Walker's your back. You did not have a backup quarterback last year. You went in going in, okay, we're kind of in cap trouble. We're not going to, you know, we're not going to push the envelope and paper set $7 to $10 million a year to play with us. He's going to go to the Commanders. That's what he did. And this year you fix that and go, okay, we're getting Jameis Winston here. We have another year of DTR. And by the way, DTR actually, I'm talking about his first real start against, you know, when he played Pittsburgh, he was phenomenal. You know, they played that ball control offense until the final drive, and he maneuvered us downfield, did a great job. Right. You know, in the Denver game, he was playing well, and then Walker came in, and, you know, in that safety, whatever happened, that sack. I don't even want to remember that game, but we wound up losing by like 20-something points because of him. You know, I'm grateful for PJ for what he was able to do, but he was the worst quarterback in the league last year when he was horrible.
He was bad, but I was at that 49er game. We got that victory somehow, and I was at the Colts game. We got that victory somehow.
So it's funny when you look at it. The big question surrounding this year's team, obviously, is Nick Chubb's health. Does he come back after week 4? Is he not back until November? We don't know that. Number 2 is the offensive line, the health of the O-line. It's going to be a huge issue if we're not healthy. Last year, the Browns, when Watson went down, Jerome Ford was able to run the ball until the offensive line went down. You had guys like DeJuan Jones was getting hurt, Jedrick Wills was getting hurt, Petonio was hurt at points, Posick was hurt at points, Teller was hurt. You know, you had a revolving door around the offensive line last year. And come late in the season, the Browns couldn't run the ball. I don't care if Emmitt Smith was back there or Jim Brown.
Nope.
You weren't going to run through that offensive line. There were no holes to be generated. Nothing. So Ford looked awful at the end of the season. Pierre Strong couldn't get through the hole. No, but when the O-line was healthy, they were able to run the ball at Jerome Ford. Go back to the Pittsburgh game. Go back to some of those early season games where they were really able to run it down teams' throats. Before they were injured. So, you know, listen, do I think you're going to get Houston's Deshaun Watson? No, I hate to say it, but I don't think he's coming back.
No, I think he's not.
This is a guy who went 5-1 as a starter last year, and because the defense was so good, if he can manage the game and the offensive line is healthy, the Browns are going to win a lot of football games. They went 11-6 last year, really 11-5. Take away week 18.
Yeah,
you know, the last game of the year was a joke. I mean, we start Jeff Driscoll at quarterback or something.
Yeah, that was it. That was who it was. Believe it or not.
You know, and I'm sitting here, you know, reminiscing about that, and it's just funny looking back at it, going like, who even cares, you know? But one of those games where you went 11-5 with plugging in Flacco with, you know, essentially no time in the end, plugging him in the Rams game with him driving downfield in the opening drive and looking great. the Browns didn't look great that game, but you realize, okay, with the steady quarterback play, we can afford to throw interceptions. We can afford to turn over the ball because our defense is going to create turnovers. But our offense has the ability to score so quickly. That's why I like having Jameis Winston here. Very similar structure to Joe Flacco. He's going to be able to throw the big, deep ball, but he's also going to turn over the ball on occasion. You know what you're getting with Jameis. Supposedly his eyes are fixed now, since he had the lace.
Colorblind or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. He had some kind of eye surgery. So apparently
nobody thought to look into that and maybe, I don't know, you're going to be a professional athlete. We might want
what? You would look at him in college. He would make some of the greatest throws you've ever seen in college. And then you just throw the ball into the linebacker's hand. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Well, I love Flacco coming off the street like Baker Mayfield style on, what was that, Monday night or Thursday, whatever that.
Baker did it with the Rams, though, too, when he was.
Yes, he did.
He did it too. Baker has the ability to light up. I will say this about Baker Mayfield. The Browns knew no matter what, they were not going to win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield. I don't care what anybody says. You could surround him with as many.
I think they were wrong. I think we could have done it, but
we were not going to win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield. No matter.
Not in their minds.
You could have surrounded him with 52 All-Pros. He was not going to win a Super Bowl. Okay. Look at Baker. He did the same thing. What Baker does, Baker will look good all game. Gets down for that game-winning drives. What does he do? Throws the pick in the Lions game.
I'm kind of
when you make him play in the pocket and stay in the pocket, he
good defenses always made Baker look like a mediocre quarterback at best. Bad defenses, he could light you up on a bad defense any day of the week, and that's where he excelled. Yep. But again, when you have a tough schedule, when you're going against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and some of these teams in Dallas this week, Baker has the ability to light up a bad defense like the Tennessee Titans. However, you win 41-10, but when it comes down to it, that's not who you want. And listen, I give it to the Browns for going all in. Watson hasn't been what we wanted, but at least they did that. And they made the move to say, hey, listen, we're going to put all of our cards on the table now. We know we have a Super Bowl caliber roster outside of quarterback. Yeah. And they did it. Like, again, Baker is who he is. Baker is an average to above average quarterback. Is he capable of winning a Super Bowl? Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Brian,
they're
I'm a
banking.
long-time Baker fan, but John, let me ask you about the quarterback play. You said that we might never see the Deshaun Watson from Houston again. What's your take on the Baker to Watson last year, a couple of years? There's a lot to unpack there.
And if I don't want to go too much into the history of Baker, but you could tell when he got injured throwing that interception 3 years ago, and they didn't come to him and say, sit your butt down, you're our guy for the future. They allowed him to manipulate them in order for him to play. It told you they didn't think that much of him, and so that was already planting the seeds that one day he would not be their guy. Because as Zach said, he was not their guy ultimately to take them to a championship. They obviously believe that Deshaun can be that guy. But we haven't seen evidence other than the second half against the Ravens and a couple spots here and there, because that's the way it's been, injuries and all that stuff.
John, you just hit it perfectly. I think the Browns, when they realized they were done with Baker Mayfield, I don't know if you remember the Green Bay Christmas game.
Oh, yeah.
A couple years ago, and the Browns had every chance to win that game, and he goes and throws 4 picks. And it looked like, and then you hear about his preparation for the game. I had some friends who played for the team at the time, and they just, at that point, he didn't have the locker room anymore. He didn't have the coaching staff support. But I will say this. I'm very grateful for Baker Mayfield for getting us out of the doghouse, because I don't think Josh Allen would have done it. Lamar Jackson was the 32nd pick in the draft. He wasn't even the running there. Darnold was a complete bust. What's his name? Josh Rosen was a complete bust. And I think Josh Allen, we would have thrown him in the fire too quickly here. And I don't think we would have had the patience for him.
We would have eaten him up too, because the fan base and the media, it would have been tough for Josh Allen to suffer those growing pains that he did to ultimately be one of the top quarterbacks in the game. You're right,
I'm very appreciative to Baker for what he did for us, getting us out of the doghouse, and that's exactly what he did. And I will always be eternally grateful for it, because I don't know if there was anybody else in that draft who could have turned it around in the first round. I'm talking about top 10 picks. Obviously, Lamar, the Ravens were able to sit him for a while, bring him in accordingly, also on a very, very talented roster.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Very stable franchise. That's stability means something.
Exactly.
Pittsburgh has that. Baltimore has that. I think even Cincinnati found that somehow. I mean,
Cincinnati's really had it since the Andy Dalton era. They've had a couple terrible years in between. But for the most part, since Andy Dalton's been there, John Kitna, since they drafted Carson Palmer, actually.
Yeah.
Since 2003, they, for the most part, have been a very stable franchise. Now, Mike Brown, we can get into this later, but Mike Brown obviously doesn't spend the money, but they have always been a borderline playoff team almost every year, 60, 70% of the time in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and the real crazy thing, guys, is to think that obviously it's going to be a great divisional race this year, without a doubt, and especially with Joe Burrow back in the fold and
if he's healthy, yeah.
If he's healthy, and that's one of the big conundrums. When he was healthy and was considered one of the top quarterbacks in the game, he just could never solve the Browns for the most part. And so continue that, please, and also have an answer for Derrick Henry running the football for the Ravens versus what they had in the past.
I don't think Henry actually even worries me anymore. He wasn't that great last year in Tennessee, and he's above the 30-year mark now.
Yeah.
Baltimore does have a good O-line, but I don't think this is the Derrick Henry of 4 or 5 years ago.
There's a lot of miles on that vehicle now.
Yeah, he's like a Rolls Royce that's got over 100,000 miles on it.
Yeah, it's a nice looking car, but you're not going to drive that from here to Miami and back.
Yeah, it'll be nice in the Hall of Fame in a few years. Yeah.
Yes, you will.
Good point. Let me jump back to the defense for something that was brought up a moment ago. The playoff game in Houston. We all kind of feel like we're good. Our defense is good. Man, look at the talent. Another year in the system. Some upcoming players. Miles even more room to keep advancing his career. But they got so exposed in that game. I'll start with John, and I'll go back to Zach. John.
Well, let me just say one thing, and Zach, you can take it from there. I just thought it exposed them because they over pursued too much, and they didn't play discipline.
Not discipline.
And you saw the big plays that happened. Take it away, Zach, because that was it in a nutshell. And then
that's what I was going to say. It looked like it was just one of those games where you go and mark it down. It reminded me of the Rams game too. Where they just they got overexposed. They were sitting there playing single man coverage the entire time in the secondary, and they were getting burned. Newsom got burned more than God. Ronnie Hickman looked like a rookie. That's the issue. You didn't have a healthy Delpit. You didn't have a healthy Thornhill. You didn't have a healthy McLeod. You threw a rookie into the mix. Don't forget, Hickman is now your fourth safety.
Yes, he is.
And Hickman's a very good player.
Anthony Bell, your fifth.
Hickman had some very good games last year.
Yeah, we had a lot of good secondary play out of that defense.
But again, you also were not healthy going in there and playing man coverage when your lack of depth in the playoffs that you had to deal with at the end of the season. Against the Jets, you were able to get away with it. You're going against, Zach Wilson?
Yeah.
Again, you're able to get away with it when you're not overexposed going against the likes of, I can't even tell you who Pittsburgh's quarterback was last year at this point, Mason Rudolph or whoever it was. It doesn't matter. You're not going against a top-notch guy. With Stroud, I think they took him for a rookie.
Yeah, they did.
They said, okay, he's a rookie. We're going to make him play. He's a rookie in a playoff game, and that's what they did. And I think their whole game plan revolved around that man-heavy blitzing. The Texans' offensive line was able to sustain the defensive pressure that the Browns brought. And, just immediately every single play in Houston could have easily had 3 more touchdowns. I was standing right there, like at the game going, okay, well, he dropped that one, barely overthrew that one. It's like every single play the Browns coverage was getting burned.
But that was the inverse of when we played Houston the first time. Amari Cooper lit him up the first game.
And again, it was just one of those games. Again, it's any given Sunday. You can look terrible on any given Sunday, and it's going to happen from time to time.
Yeah, that first game against the Texans, that got away from the Texans real fast, and then it was, then it was just a huge lead, and then it was just them trying to play catch up the rest of the way. But I agree with you, Zach. It was like we kind of got led into believing it would be just another snap your fingers kind of a thing, and it wasn't. CJ showed something against the Colts, and so. He grew up a little there, and he really grew up against the Browns.
I also think the Texans are one of those teams, if you look at teams that are overrated, underrated, for example, I do think the Texans are a playoff team, but I think everybody pushing the Texans to be a top 5 team in the NFL this year.
I don't believe it.
I'm not buying it at all. I think they're a very good team. I think they're good, but do I have them as a top 5 team? And the other team, too, that's at the top 2 that people are all picking to win the Super Bowl, look at the Buffalo Bills. They lost their entire starting secondary. Matt Milano's out for the year. Von Miller's a shell of his former self. They have no receiver who's ever had over 900 yards receiving in a season on their roster.
Yep.
The Bills, I think, are one of those teams this year that's going to take a major step backwards. People are predicting this out of the Browns to take a major step backwards. It's a team that won 11 games without a quarterback last year.
No, I agree with you.
Starting running back was out for the majority of the season.
Offensive line.
15 games we missed, 14 or 15 games we missed Nick Chubb.
It was just they were all wearing name tags like, "Hello, my name is starting left
exactly."
tackle.
You know, in the
Conklin
defense
out. Yeah.
the defense wasn't even healthy. Yet Schwartz was able to do such a good job of rotating players here. And the one player I'm really going to miss is Sion Takitaki. I think he was very versatile. Was great in coverage. He's one of those guys I will genuinely miss back there. Like I said, I love the Hicks signing. It's a huge upgrade. I even think Devin Bush is going to be a great fit here in Cleveland, depending on how Schwartz is able to utilize him. But everywhere Schwartz is gone, look at his linebackers. He's always done a fantastic job. Yeah,
it's going to be fun to watch this defense all year long, guys. It really is. And obviously, and you stated it before, Zach, and you too, Brian, it's what Deshaun does. If he can be steady all year and there's not a lot of drama and they can continue to exploit, Njoku should have a great year. But he really should.
But the receivers are upgraded with too. Sunday. You know, look at Njoku. They were able to involve Njoku way more in the offense the second half of the season. They finally realized how to utilize him.
That was a Flacco thing. That might have been a Flacco.
I genuinely believe it was getting him out there running these more tight end screens. If you look at it, a lot of his big plays are created after the catch.
Yeah, good luck tackling that guy. It's like you're in the Caesar's Palace Forum shops in Vegas, and one of those statues comes to life and just steps down. It's like throw me the ball.
He's a freak athlete. He's showing that he was definitely worth the first round pick. I'll tell you that. He was not a bust by any means.
No.
You know, and also you've added Jerry Jeudy to the equation now. You're getting another year out of Cedric Tillman. It frees up Amari Cooper, and I do believe that Ken Dorsey will be able to utilize Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore was used improperly in the last offense, in Van Pelt's offense, where they're running these wheel routes. They were running the same. Who was the guy they had out of UCLA, the running back? Demetric Felton. Totally were running Elijah route and Felton's old routes. He's not a gadget player.
He's not that guy. He's not a
gadget player. He's a deep threat is what he is. And you didn't utilize him then until the Jets game.
You know, we were talking a little bit about Kevin and how he's matured. I thought, to your point, Zach, how he massaged the Njoku situation said a lot about his growth as a head coach. He's not afraid to have dominant personalities on his staff where people might think, oh, he'll take over for you. Jim Schwartz being my most latest example, even Vrabel being in the building. And I thought what they did with David, with the Chiefs, was a great case of, guys upset about whatever he's upset about, and they let it kind of breathe a bit. Everybody calm down here. And the head coach and others in the building worked with him and made him see what they saw in him. And then, boom, he just blew up. He's a Pro Bowl player. He should be. In fact, I've seen a lot of, different polls that have come out. When you look at all the skills that he has, he's top 3 to 5 tight ends in football today. And so
easily.
He's tremendous. He's a tremendous player. So I'm going to enjoy watching him. And I'm sure people that play fantasy have him on board in many, many ways. They're going to watch this guy play this year and see him take another step up the ladder of his ascension towards being one of the best players.
Another name to watch out for this year.
Okay.
I love getting Nick Harris back. I was so pissed when we lost him, by the way.
Yes.
But Zach Zinter from Michigan.
Yeah, they say he really looks the part so far.
If you look at him in practice, he was, mauling guys. If you looked at him in the preseason, guy didn't allow a single pressure. I think that really helps because it allows Bitonio, to slide over to left tackle, God forbid. There's another injury, Bitonio can slide.
It could happen.
Proven he can play left tackle when he needs. Zinter, I think, is going to be a very good guard who will eventually replace Bitonio or Teller. Probably more likely Bitonio, since I see him probably retiring in the next couple of years.
Possibly, yeah. Very much so.
But back to that left tackle, I'm concerned about Jed. I'm concerned about who's
Conklin
in that spot.
But again, worst case scenario, Bitonio can slide over. He can play the position, and you move Zinter into the role at left guard. I think having a swing guard like Zinter and having a swing tackle like Bitonio over there is going to make a huge difference than it did a year ago. You also lost Conklin in game 1 against the Bengals.
Yep.
Which completely depleted the O-line, right? Immediately depleted your depth. Wills couldn't stay healthy last year. That's never been the Browns' MO. The Browns' MO over the last few years, always having a healthy O-line, powerful run game, and keeping the quarterback upright. It's always, but it totally for a while eliminated the play action, which is why, suddenly what we're going to do is we're going to run a lot of screens, which kind of elevated Njoku's status.
It did. Played right into him.
Exactly. It brought him right out of where you didn't think he'd go because there was so much pressure. Teams thought they were just generating all this pressure with a bad O-line, and suddenly, okay, we're able to get it off to Njoku. We're able to run screens with Pierre Strong. We're able to get this out of here. I do worry about our depth at tight end a little bit too.
Yeah, there's just
very,
two.
Very happy about the Nick Harris acquisition, reacquiring him.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, since I'm sure Kevin's going to want to go more 11 personnel and all that, but I'm wondering how much you might even see any kind of jumbo Nick Harris in the lineup. I don't think as much with this year's construction of the offense, but not to say it won't be used on occasion.
Yeah, they're running
not a heavy dose like they had.
We're going to be running a much heavier RPO-based offense this year under Dorsey. And, and that's the thing is Van Pelt, they did not run that RPO, and that's where Watson really excelled in Houston under Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see what happens this year, with that offense. And I think that was one of the things they did not play to Watson's strengths last year.
They didn't. They did not. I agree.
Well, let's kind of figure out what we think to expect from the Browns this year. What do we think the record is going to be, fellas? Let's get a prediction. I guess it's like three things: predictions, keys to the season, an area that you're most concerned about that has to succeed for us to succeed. It's a three: predictions, keys, and season record.
Go ahead, Zach. I'll let you go.
I'm going to say 11-6.
Okay.
I'm going to say the keys are the health of this team, especially the offensive line is the key to keeping Deshaun Watson healthy. If Watson's able to replicate what he did in the second half of the Baltimore game, Browns are going to be in for a heck of a season. I'll tell you that right now. And I mean in a good, positive way. If he can play like he did in the second half of the Baltimore game, where that team came alive, John, if you remember in that Jerome Ford run, where he just buried it down for that Dustin Hopkins field goal, that's where that team came together last season.
Yeah.
And if they can somehow have that kind of moment early on in the season this year, and really take it forward, I think the Browns could win a lot of football games this year. I think a lot will also determine based on the first 4 weeks of the season. If you have a strong opener against Dallas, go to Jacksonville. You've got who do we have in week 3?
Someone coming here. Is it the Commanders?
Yeah.
No. I'm not even sure, to be honest.
No, it's the Giants. I'm sorry. It's the Giants.
Giants coming here. Yeah.
If you can start off 3-1 or 4-0 and get to a really strong start, which would be absolutely huge for the Browns to do that, you're in the driver's seat after that. And I think they'll win anywhere from 10 to 12 games this year. And I do believe they could win up to 13. If they went 13-4, would it shock me? No. If they went 8-9 or 9-8, it wouldn't shock me either. But I think that 11 wins is where they'll be. And I think the key to this year staying healthy is the offensive line and keeping the quarterback upright, opening up holes for the running back. It's not Nick Chubb's health because we know Ford can run the ball. I would love to have a healthy Nick Chubb. He's the best running back in the league when he's healthy. But again, it's the health of the offensive line and the stability.
I would have to say I'd also go with the offensive line, the health of it, and the play of the linebackers. I like the 2 new guys they got. You alluded to them earlier. We both were mentioning them. And, of course, replacing Taki. The ascension of JOK, just phenomenal football player. And so let's see more of that. The back end is fine. You've got a lot of experience back there at safety. And, of course, on the cornerback positions, you've got 3 guys that you can heavily involve week in and week out. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I can see them winning 11, 12 games. I just think it's going to be a fun year, guys. I really do. I love how they built this team. I do think that because of the salary cap down the road with Watson, this is kind of like this year, next year, really got to make it worth a while having him here in Cleveland. How he plays certainly will determine how this team goes forward the rest of the year. But I do feel good with a guy like Jameis, who's a proven leader. We see that, how everybody loves him here in Cleveland. I see he's already a media guy doing some stuff with Big Play. They signed him to do some stuff. And so I like the vibe in Cleveland. The Haslams have been much maligned. We know all the quick trigger finger that Jimmy had with coaches and GMs and all that stuff. But he settled and they found 2 guys in the head coach and the general manager that could be here a long, long time. And I like everything about those guys, how they carry themselves, how they built the team, how they work together, how the ego is right out the door, and how they will settle in this year. Going to be a fun year on the lakefront at Huntington Bank Field. I think that's right. How you say
the Columbus Clipper Stadium too?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time doing that. I just got used to saying First Energy.
It's Brown Stadium to me.
Me too. Me too. It's great. I mean, I who didn't love the Jake? I mean, that was named after
always the Jake.
It's funny. I always thought
I loved it. The Jake.
I still call it the Jake.
Forever the Jake.
The Jake.
But the one weird thing is, though, I vowed when the Cavs changed, Quicken Loans Arena to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, that I would never say it. I always say it now.
Yeah.
I vowed I would never say it, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
With basketball, it's just different. I mean, when we first opened, it was the Gund. It was great.
Weird.
It was Gund.
Yeah, Gund Arena sounds like something you could contract. I learned about
that. There is medicine for that.
There's medicine for that. Well, let's pivot to that, because in baseball,
gonorrhea. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said it. By the way, my prediction will be undefeated Super Bowl winning season. That is my official.
Thank you very much.
Brian predicts the Miami the 72 Dolphins year after year.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. They're not gonna crack their champagne. John, what was the record you think that they're gonna end up with? And will we?
I could say 11 or 12 wins. So hold me to 11 or 12
run
wins.
Potentially.
100%.
We can go
100%.
100%. I think they have a very good shot, again, depending on the health of this team. And every year, if you look at the teams in the Super Bowl, it's always the healthiest teams.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see this year, guys? I'd like to see. I know we've all kind of alluded to Jerome Ford. Kind of hit or miss sometimes. He has good vision. I just don't think he trusts his instincts enough. He's got to do that. Be more, make a quick decision and hit it the way Nick did.
Pierre Strong has to hold on to the ball.
And he's got to hold on to the ball.
Hold on to it. And some of that's coaching. We got rid of our running back coach, right? We're talking about offensive line. We got rid of our offensive line coach.
Right.
We got rid of. He did not get rid of Callahan. You're going
to want to coach with your son. I mean, who would pass that opportunity up, and who would deny him the chance to do that? If the Browns denied him, I would really hate the Haslam's.
I have to tell you this right now, though. If you look at how the Haslam's have transformed their image before we get off the Browns.
Yeah.
Went from being the worst owners in all of sports.
Sure.
Okay, at one point when they first started.
Yep.
Now you look at the organization, they are stable as can be as owners. They're pumping money into the team. They're spending every dime possible. They have become, people are always like on sports, well, we don't trust the ownership. We don't trust the ownership. I go, over the last 5 years, the ownership has been incredibly stable. They've done nothing but great things for the city of Cleveland, for the Browns, for the city of Columbus by keeping the crew in town. And look what they've done since they took 2 championships.
Yeah.
Built a brand new stadium. The Haslams really are committed to the city of Cleveland, the state of Ohio. And I think it's wrong for anybody at this point. If you told me the first few years the Haslams would turn into this, I would get the hell out of here.
Sure.
But I think they are some of the best owners in the NFL now. And I think they're starting to become some of the envy of the sport. They're spending money. Fan attendance is up. Happiness is up. What did the fans ask for? They wanted new uniforms after they brought those crappy ones out. What'd they do? Listen, look at J.W. Johnson. They brought back the uniforms. Fans asked for the white face masks, the orange pants. They brought the orange pants back. Then the white face masks. They brought the 46 uniforms, the white helmets. Like, they are intuitive with the fans. I have to tell you, as a season ticket holder, their season ticket rep, shout out to Mike Judge, Devin Stith, my season ticket. They have done an incredible job in fan appeasement, just doing everything they can in terms of
engagement,
game day experience too, and non-game day experience too. They take care of their fans. I mean, I wish the Guardians did that. I wish they took care of their fans like their season ticket holders, like the Browns do. I mean, the Browns are second to none and they used to be the worst. So under the Lerner administration, they were the worst. So you look at now what a 180 in ownership can do. Now you look at owners like David Tepper going, yeah, we had that before.
Yeah.
And David Tepper is worse than I think the Haslams ever were.
You're right.
This is a far cry from going to the perfect winless season parade. I mean,
it's amazing. It's amazing though how they've been able to change it. How, like I said, Baker Mayfield, I'm very appreciative for him for that. But it's amazing what they've been able to do to transform this team around in 6 short years. Now where we've had multiple playoff appearances.
Yep.
They've done
stable coaching. Yep.
In a stable front office. Most importantly, letting the front office make the on-field decisions.
Yeah. It's also been cool, and I know, Brian, I don't know if you want to wrap things up or whatever, but
and by the way, John, I appreciate your time. If you need to go, you can go.
No, I'm good.
I'm happy talking as long as you guys.
I didn't know if you had a hard out or anything like that, but what they've done, even the guys and gals that they have groomed here in Cleveland, under ownership and management, who have gone on elsewhere and have had jobs. So kudos to them for that. A lot of things to like. And boy, I was a big critic of them when they were the Browns, and who couldn't have been? The Browns being the Browns, perfect parade and all that sort of stuff. That was so Cleveland, so Brownsy. But you see less and less of that, and I just think they have all the ingredients this year to have a phenomenal year. So just go out and play football, keep everybody safe. Keep the stability going. It's fun to watch them. They're still the greatest fans on earth. I love Browns fans. The Muni lot is amazing, and let's have a great year for these Brownies. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And just a quick shout out to the documentary that was made, Football Equals Family, the story of the perfect winless season parade. Check that out. We made that. Flew in. I was hanging out with McNeil the whole day. I was on the bus with Rover with him. I was on the other bus with his grandfather talking about when he was at the championship game. It was just like this whole behind the scenes thing with the comic that made a winless season parade and draw a zero around the building. It was just so Brownsy. So
Brian, I would have gone to that. Unfortunately, I think I was in Miami for that when that happened. I think it was around New Year's.
You probably, you wanted, it wasn't the nicest of weather days, obviously, but I remember being saying so on TV, like, who is this McNeil guy? I, of course, knew him from Reflog and all that stuff. But I would always say, like, you're rubbing salt in the wound, blah, blah, blah. But then I came around to think, this is so much our Browns fan base. They want to be heard. They want it to be announced to the world how upset they were with not just a winless season, but they were going a stretch of 1-31, and that was their statement.
Yeah,
that was 100% behind what he was trying to do. As much as it ticked off some people, and you saw the response. You were there, Brian. Mm-hmm. You saw the response of how fans took it in the right way, and I think the Browns. I think kind of took it in the right way.
Listen, John, I think you're 100% correct too. Look at how the Haslam's responded to it. They actually went from no fan engagement when they decided to change the uniforms, didn't press it by any of the fans first. Look at what they did with fan engagement after. Look at J.W. Johnson just on Twitter alone.
Yeah.
Look at Jimmy and looking at the conforming to the fan base going, what do you want to see here? What do you want? By just letting the Browns fans pick the midfield logo in the end zone every year.
Something like that, right.
Bringing back the history of the elf. Browns brought back their history. They allowed the fans to engage so you feel like you're a part of it.
Yep.
It's not.
It really was the story of Football Equals Family. It was a lot of generations of fans and kind of reliving, and it was a parody parade and protest. They were come on, you guys got to, and I want to give somebody credit that we've pretty much forgotten in this whole rebuild thing.
John Dorsey.
You couldn't empty out all of the cabinets, all of our quality players to accumulate the draft picks to get Sashi Brown.
I'm more appreciative of John Dorsey than Sashi. I am appreciative of the draft capital, but Sashi also royally missed on a lot of his draft picks. They were horrible.
Yeah, of course. Well, and that was another question I was going to have was, how do we feel about this Browns team and their draft picks? They're much maligned for their misses, but then
how do we feel about John? How do we feel about Jim Paxson over at the arena? What he did pre-LeBron and stuff.
Here's how I am. Here's how I am on this one.
Definitely help things. That's for sure.
Do I think Barry's necessarily drafted so well? Okay, but look at his trades. They've traded for Amari Cooper.
Yeah. For a fifth rounder or something.
Fifth rounder. Jerry Jeudy, fifth rounder.
Yep.
Dorsey traded a fifth rounder for Wyatt Teller.
Yeah.
Great move.
Ethan Posick was a free agent signing.
Yeah.
Jack Conklin, free agent signing. DeJuan Jones, fourth rounder. Nick, Jerome Ford, fifth rounder. DTR, fifth rounder.
Right.
You've gotten a lot of production off the later portions of this. Too. You've also had a lot of really good free agent signings too. As part of this, Emerson, third round pick. Thornhill, free agent. Hickman, undrafted free agent. Rodney McLeod, free agent.
Right.
You've done a lot of good so far too. They also again, Barry has not had a lot of first-round picks and a lot of second-rounders as ammo here. And he's traded back so they could add more depth later in the draft.
We get picks next year, don't we? I don't even remember what it's like to have
so again, you could say they panned out. Dorsey, I think, was an incredible general manager. Did I think Dorsey, and I think what he's done up in Detroit, up there, he still lives in Shaker. His kid still goes to US.
They're still in the US pipeline, as it were.
So Dorsey, though, has done a fantastic job at helping rebuild that Detroit roster, too. What was the first thing they went and did when he got up there? They rebuilt the O-line like he did in Cleveland. Rebuilt the O-line.
Hey, how about a Lions-Browns Super Bowl? Come on.
I was hoping for it last year. I was convinced, instead here I am, I'm the jackass that goes and spends a bunch of money to go see a repeat Super Bowl, which I saw 4 years ago of Niners Chiefs.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for the season. It's just, you can walk outside at some point during the week and it smells.
Are you guys going to be at the opener this weekend?
I will not be. I physically cannot be there. You'll be there, I'm sure.
John, are you going to be running one of your ultra 100-mile marathons?
No, not this week, but I will be watching it. Let's just say, but I won't be there in person. I'll be there in week.
I'm not entirely certain of that at this moment.
I'm also flying to Vegas.
How is the door cracked a little bit?
I'm going to Vegas for the game for week 4 too. I'm pumped about that.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing for fans. That will be.
They're
huge.
saying ticket brokers are estimating it's supposed to be 80+% Browns fans at that game.
That's going to be crazy.
I was there last year for the Super Bowl, and I have to tell you that stadium. You want to say Center Strip? It was one of the coolest venues. Just getting there, it's a really cool stadium. And by the way, Mortensen, the same group, and the Browns. So Mortensen did the Vikings Stadium. They did Raiders Stadium.
Same people. Yep.
They're working on the Browns Stadium too.
Yeah.
Same architect. So the Browns are in good hands because US Bank's a top 3 stadium in the NFL, if not the best. And Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, another top 5 NFL stadium. I would put it up there. And I've been to SoFi. I've been to some of the best. So I'm telling you, when I say this, like, the Browns are in great hands. I have full faith that their stadium, based on the renderings, it doesn't look like that new cookie cutter dome like all the other ones look like.
No.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, like you said, kind of like Minnesota, the look there, a little different look on the scheme of the downtown landscape and what have you. And also the interactive experience. Did you find that to be cool in some of those stadiums, like the one in Vegas that you were at, Zach?
Vegas was very cool. I found Vegas to be very cool because of that. Atlanta was amazing because the concessions were so cheap.
Okay.
Atlanta had $1 slices of pizza, $1 bottle of water, $2 beer.
Imagine that.
You get a whole
like
pizza,
you're Costco.
You get a whole large pizza.
The hot dog that never changes price.
We were just picking out at the game in Atlanta. You didn't even want to eat at the tailgate.
Last year I had a chance to go to a lot of games last year, and I've over the past couple of years I've been to a bunch. I really enjoyed the Colts stadium. It was just weird as the sun moved across, as it was shining through. It was super cold, and then you were cooking. Then you were taking layers off, and then you'd hit the shade.
That's how SoFi was when I was at SoFi. You don't expect LA to be 92 degrees in the middle of February.
No, not in February.
And I have to tell you, that stadium does not have AC.
It doesn't. It's basically an outdoor venue with a big curvy roof.
And the heat has nowhere to go, so it radiates to the top. Yes. I'm telling you, that is one stadium where, if it's not a windy day, as close as they are to the ocean, though, but a game in October, and we all know LA's hottest month is October, you bake in that stadium. That is one of the design flaws that they have with that stadium. But to be honest with you, the concourses, when you get in there, you go below the ground because of, they couldn't build as high because of the airport being right next to LAX, which is very reminiscent of the new Browns stadium as well. So
it's going to be the same.
Dug out like a hole in the ground.
I'm really excited to see what the Browns will do out there. I really, really, for any fan that's on the fence that thinks the stadium should stay downtown, if it's not a dome, you don't want it being downtown. Just you can go to Barley House 8 games a year or Ivy, wherever. You want it to be in Brook Park. It might be a little less convenient now, but in the future, I'm telling you, when I make this point, having a $3 billion new airport next door to it, and having the stadium there and having the ability to grow Brook Park as the next Westlake potentially, because of it, turn it into a decent area. Right now, it's a very just blue collar steel area, manufacturing area. This really transforms the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. And I'm excited to watch the progress as the political people and the Haslams and everybody eventually get on the same page and have it go forward. It's going
I
to
think
happen.
the city's just trying to save face right now by saying, "Hey, put it downtown. We'll give you, we'll give you the revenue off, these 3,000 parking spots." Like, it does nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't you can't be Kramer and say I'm out that fast. You got to let it you got to give it some time and then say I'm out. So let it go. It's going to happen.
Nice Kramer drop. I'll take that.
Thank you.
I drop Seinfeld references every day, so it's the one I haven't dropped.
Amazing show.
The classics. Okay, well, let's bounce over to just a couple quick hits, a little bit of the Buckeye season starting. Any thoughts on the early part of the season? New quarterback in town. You can't make much out of week one, but here we are.
Well, Howard looked good, though. He looked better than McCord did all of last year.
Yeah, I see that, his ability to run with the football. They got two stud backs, JT on the defensive line, Sawyer on the other side. What's all the talent on that?
The question is the offensive line. It's the same question it was last year. Can the offensive line hold up? Can they protect Will Howard? Can they protect Judkins? And can they protect
we'll see what happens.
Henderson? It's a big issue. We already know Jeremiah Smith is going to probably be Harrison, the next great Ohio State wide receiver.
Wow.
You still have Emeka Egbuka. You're loaded still offensively and defensively. But here's the whole thing that we don't have a schedule this year that's like Michigan. We have to go to Oregon. Michigan's facing USC, Texas. They've got a lot of huge games early on in the schedule. Yeah. Ohio State, fortunately, only has to go to Oregon, and there aren't a lot of big games on the schedule this year. You get Michigan at home, which is great. You get Iowa at home. Iowa's never an easy place to play, especially when it's a 3-0 football game. Typical Kirk Ferentz ball. But, Ohio State this year, I think it depends on the health of the offensive line and can Ryan Day coach in the big game. Huge question.
Jury's still out on that one. I don't want to be negative. I'll try to stay positive, but man, I've changed the cover photo for the Strictly Buckeyes group that we run for the Unhappy Hour, and it's Urban Meyer looking pissed off on the side.
This isn't Urban Meyer or Jim Tressel walking through these doors ready to coach.
Not anytime soon. Yeah, right. Yeah,
these are soft football teams. These are not the typical, your guys with James Laurinaitis dating back to Matt Wilhelm, going back,
right.
Katzenware days with your big physical linebackers that Ohio State always had.
It's just not that way. Yeah.
And that's not the Ryan Day team. These are explosive offenses that pass the ball out. These are not the run it down your throat teams or the Braxton Miller where the quarterback's rushing. Under Ryan Day, CJ Stroud was not a runner. You look at him in the NFL, he can run actually. You look at these guys, total differentiation of offensive game, between Ryan Day and Urban Meyer. So do I think Day can win at Ohio State? Yes. I think this is a talented roster. They've managed to go into NIL and the portal and everything and rebuild this roster and fill all your holes in from last year. So let's see what happens. I'd be shocked if they don't make the playoff. I will tell you that. I'm not saying they'll win it, but I'll be shocked if they don't make it.
It's really a new day, obviously, with the NIL, with the aspect of them being able to keep guys like JT, keep guys like Sawyer and Ransom and those guys that otherwise may have tested the waters. I feel real confident about how they're going to be this year. To your point earlier, Zach, about Will Howard, there can be a little bit of the JT game that we used to see with that running quarterback, but his ability to throw the ball is there. He's proved it.
He's got a heck of an arm.
Yeah, so this is going to be fun. Let's enjoy this. I think it's obviously they're a playoff team, but I mean, I can see them going to the title game and winning it all.
I can see that. I'd be shocked. Like I said, I'd be shocked if they're not a playoff team. I still think they're a top 2, top 3 college football team. I think Georgia under Carson Beck is going to be very, very difficult to beat.
Yeah.
But again, we should have beaten them 2 years ago down in in the Peach Bowl. They should have won. Harrison getting injured and then a couple BS
laid out.
There's some bad coaching call.
There was also some terrible officiating calls.
Terrible officiating. Yeah.
Ohio State should have won that game easily. They missed a field goal at the end. That should have been one of those games, and they would have trounced TCU in the championship.
They would have. Yeah.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. But, look, in the new millennium, this could be the most talented Buckeye roster we've had and the most talented Browns roster that we've had.
Yeah.
I still think the Ohio State team from 2 years ago when they lost, when they had – or was it?
Don't remind me of that.
I think that was the most talented Ohio State team. Or
Yeah.
the Justin. There were so many talented Ohio State teams.
No, and only 2 titles in like the modern era.
Yeah.
This seems like we missed on a lot. Let's transition right there about only 2 titles from the modern era. We the Cleveland Indians, now the Cleveland Guardians. We talked about name changes to the stadium. That's not an easy one for me to make. I just like calling them the Tribe. I'll meet you in the middle.
I still call them the Tribe. I'll say the guards or the Tribe. It doesn't matter. I saw my Wahoo hat to the games.
But we're the I think if my research serves me, if my memory serves me correctly, I think there's only one franchise that's ever lost a Game 7 9th inning lead in the World Series, and it was the Tribe, and it happened twice. So we've definitely squandered opportunity. You think to Bell, Baerga, Lofton, Tomey, Allen, and you're just like, we got 0 titles out of that. John, I couldn't have you on without asking you to tell us that story. We're called the Unhappy Hour. And John, you were, I call it the trophy story. If you could just maybe, give us whichever version you care to tell today, because that summed up who Cleveland sports fans were and who we're trying to move past with a couple of
I mean, just being outside the clubhouse, getting ready for the Indians to win the World Series in '97, and in comes the trophy. In comes a trailer. What are those? A dumbbell waiter or whatever those things are called, with the boxes of champagne. In comes Jacobs, and they're in there ready for the celebration. And then, Jose does what he does. And next thing you know, door opens. Here comes this. And they're taking stuff off of the lockers. Yeah, it was sobering. It is what it is. And at least I got a chance to see the one thing in Oakland, be in that celebration in the locker room. But it was just weird. And still, I think this year, why not? I mean, obviously there's some real good teams in baseball. The records reflect them. There's 6 or 7 teams that have much better records than a lot of the other teams in the game, and the Guardians are one of them. And I think with Cobb and Boyd coming here, good gamble. 3 starts for one, 4 for the other. ERAs are pretty good. They seem to have righted the ship that was floundering when they were, the Royals came and caught them, and then now the Royals are 5.5 back. So there's a lot to be excited about postseason wise. It gives me a little heart defibrillation once in a while, but it's much better than I expected them to be this year. And I think a lot of people came in feeling that this would be kind of a get your legs underneath you. You didn't know what to expect with a new skipper, all that stuff, and they've just been beyond expectations, and the fans are either reflecting it because they think they have something great to watch, or maybe it's just the way they reconfigured the stadium, the ballpark, and the monthly all you can attend pass that they have, all that type of stuff. It's a great vibe down there at the ballpark, and let's keep the good times rolling.
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest with you, John. I mean, the game day experience is so much better than it was in previous years. They're much more active on game day. A lot of the standing room only is always packed. They've done a great job with that, and they've done a good job filling that in. Also, like you said, the Boyd and the Cobb acquisition was the first 2 things I was going to harp on. If you look at the team 2 years ago, though, went to the playoffs, won the wild card round and barely lost to the Yankees in the yes. Okay, and then last year was like a fluke at how bad they were. But it looked like Francona just wanted to be out the door last year. It wasn't typical Tito.
Yeah.
So this year going into it, you go, okay, our one big acquisition was Scott Barlow. So you look at it and go, okay, they could return to what they were 2 years ago, or they're just going to completely suck, with the new manager. But Tito you could just tell, like, Tito did not want to be here last year. He wasn't healthy. His foot was out the door, and I just you felt bad. This year, it's like they got up to a super hot start, which we're not usually used to in Cleveland. Usually they don't pick up until July.
Correct. Yeah.
Go look at the 17 Indians that won, what was it, 102 games? They had the 22.
And they had that win streak, 21, 22 in a
row.
And
they were playing mediocre 500 baseball up until that point.
Yeah, then they caught. Yeah.
And they caught and won over 100 games. The 18 Indians, too, were very good, too. We had a lot of really good years there. I think Stephen Voigt's done a great job as manager with this team, especially when you had Bieber injured on day one. McKenzie hasn't been himself.
Who is he? Yeah.
He inserted Ben Lively, but Matthew Boyd, Cobb, they've been fantastic. Gavin Williams seems like he's getting his stuff together. Tanner Beebe's been the ace of the rotation all season.
Well,
So
there's an
Bob
ace
Lively's been good too.
bullpen that could win a Cy Young.
Here's the other thing too. You've thrown Hunter Gaddis, which was a 7th, 8th starter, into the bullpen who throws gas. You know, he's thrown 95 to 97. You know, he's in there dominating. You know, Kate Smith, who dominated AAA last year, is up dominating. Class A was not good last year. Let's be honest.
It wasn't. No.
10+ blown saves last year.
He's now the Cleveland all-time
this
save
year,
leader, right?
That's the thing is that he's
26 years old too.
Self.
Wow.
Here's the other thing too. When you look at it, you could look at a team that has mediocre starting pitching, a decent offense to mediocre. Let's go, for example, let's take the 01 Mariners that won 116 games. What was the best part about that team? Nothing about their lineup stands out. They had Brett Boone. They had a good team, but nothing. Mike Cameron. I mean, like Edgar Martinez, they weren't dominant offensively. They weren't the Indians. You know, their starting pitching was anchored by Freddie Garcia. They had a good rotation, nothing spectacular, but the most dominant bullpen of all time. With Kasasaki, Arthur Rhodes, you know, that team was you once the 7th inning hit, if they had the lead, they weren't losing the game. Yeah. That's the same thing with the Guardians team now. If the Guards are carrying a lead, that's why they do so well in extra innings. That's why they do so well past the 7th. We haven't lost a game where we've had the lead past the 9th.
Well, you know what that means.
We haven't lost a game this year.
Playoff baseball, baseball too. So that's going to serve us well when everyone's bunting and squeezing and trying to manufacture runs. We live for that stuff. But
they're also hitting with power though this year. That's what differentiates them from a year.
You didn't have it last year.
You know, you're getting guys like Quan is hitting home runs this year. Jackenzie Noel is killing the ball. I think Manzardo going down to AAA and coming back has been huge for him. He looks great. Naylor's healthy this year. Wasn't healthy last year. Right. You know, Jimenez looks like he's starting to pick it up slightly now offensively. Right. You know, Rocchio finally last night did something. He's had a nice turnaround over the last week, though.
Good to see that.
You know, Stephen Kwan is not playing well right now. Do I know if I'd keep him in the leadoff spot at this point? You know, don't tinker with what, you know, I trust our managerial decisions. I'm not the manager, but again, they're playing good baseball again right now. It's been, you know, they're one of those teams where if they get cold going to the playoffs, they're going to get swept right away. If they're hot going in, you can see them like 16 with all those injuries. Yeah. They walked into the World Series. In 16, you swept the Red Sox. You beat the Blue Jays in 5. Yep. And then finally, when Kluber wore down in that series against the Cubs, you know, Andrew Miller was just pitched every, 2 innings every night, it seemed like.
Too much, yeah.
You know,
Bauer was injured. He was bleeding all over.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, you just didn't have the depth. I mean, you were relying on Josh Tomlin to go into these games.
They had a bullpen game against remember they had a bullpen game against the Blue Jays, right? Didn't they?
I think it was at that game. Was that game 4?
It was in Toronto, if I recall.
I went to game 4 and we lost game 4 in Toronto, and then we came back and won game 5.
Yep.
You know, and won the ALCS in Toronto in game 5. I mean, which was just
you pitched.
Tell you like this
the
team
kids. I'm not recalling the kids. Who was the kid that pitched game 5? I forget.
I remember everybody paid for his wedding.
Everybody took care of his wedding favors and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was nuts.
Registered at Macy's or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, look at that. And baseball's one of those teams. Baseball very rarely does the best team win. Look at the Dodgers. They have one World Series. It was during COVID.
Look at the Rangers. You know,
it's the hottest team every year, and you get my favorite band on the loudspeaker playing Creed, and the Rangers win.
Exactly.
It's the summer of Zach. It's the summer of Zach.
You know, I'm telling you, the tribe starts playing Creed. You know, all it does is bring winners. Scott Stapp knows how to win.
Can I take you higher? Right.
By the way, Brian, I don't know if you ever know this, but they did the Florida Marlins theme song in the mid 2000s. Oh, it was "Come On Marlins, Make Us Proud." It was just, Brian, go to YouTube, check it out. You'll die.
All right.
This is Scott Stapp singing it, and it's every year on opening day. My friends and I, we all send it to each other.
That's hilarious.
You know, the way he says "double play." But yeah, I just have to say I'm excited. You know, we're ready. You know, we're 4 weeks away from playoff baseball here in Cleveland. Maintain doing what they're doing. They have a nice lead going in there. They've got, I believe it's 7.5 up on the wild card. So worst case scenario, we're getting wild card baseball.
We've been right there, the number 1 team in the league. Like, we've been jockeying for that number 1 overall back and forth. We've been right in the hunt all year, most of the year.
Yeah.
Well, and now with the starting rotation going deeper into these games now, it's finally giving the bullpen some rest.
Thank you.
You know, but here's the most interesting stat. I don't know what's more interesting this year. I think John Sable brought this up the other day, or I'm pretty sure it was him. I want to give him credit. One of the Sable brothers, I think it was.
Okay.
Or was
Yeah,
Anthony
baseball
Castrovitz?
geeks.
It was either the Sable brothers or Anthony Castrovitz. But said, what's more unbelievable, that the Tribe has lost 5 games this year against the Chicago White Sox?
Oh, yeah.
Or the fact that they're 1-15 in doubleheaders this year. Seriously, in doubleheader games are 1-15.
That's crazy.
8 doubleheaders this year, 1-15.
That's insane.
I don't know what's more unbelievable. You've lost 5 to the White Sox.
Probably
Grady
the 5.
Sizemore's White Sox, by the way. Grady Sizemore's White Sox.
That's right. That is right. He got thrown out of a game for the first time.
What would you say is more unbelievable, guys? That's an honest question.
I would take the White Sox. That's my answer.
I said 5 losses to the White Sox.
Yeah,
I mean, 1-15 is statistically. What did Mike Polk yell at the Factory of Sadness? It is statistically more unlikely that you can be this consistently bad than it is for you to occasionally accidentally be good. The probability is staggering.
Like I'm more.
I hate you.
If you look at the Columbus Clippers opening day roster, and you put them in Major League Baseball with those guys that were down there, would probably win more than 31 games. Like if you look at it, because half the roster was down in the minors this year for the
were.
If you look at it, Manzardo, Jackenzie Noel, all those guys. Will Brennan at one point was down there. Miles Strauss,
Angel, yeah.
Like if you took all those guys that were in AAA to start the season, I genuinely believe that they would win more games than the White Sox have.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
And we also
what's
have
that say?
one overall pick in the minors too.
It says that they've gotten better at a position player development.
Absolutely. And I think Manzardo's starting to hit the cover off the ball. He had 2 homers the other day. I wish they wouldn't have set him down the first time because he was raking doubles. He wasn't there yet, but you could tell he was getting there. And I think that one stint in AAA did it. Now he's back. I think you've got the future over there. I think Oscar Gonzalez was a flash in the pan a few years ago. Everybody knew it was never going to last. His swing was too long, was never going to translate. It was all luck. Jackenzie Noel is a monster at the plate who can hit 35-plus homers a year. I'm not saying he ever will, but I'm saying if his development can continue along the path he's going, I mean, he's hitting 450-foot home runs.
Yeah, his OPS is pretty impressive for how little he's been exposed to big league pitching, I guess.
Here's the other thing, too, that people don't realize. If you look at all the bad trades that Antonetti made over the past few years, Yainer Diaz with the Houston Astros, all-star catcher, Junior Caminero over with the number 1 overall prospect right now with Tampa Bay. We traded him for a pitcher that's no longer with us. Who's the starting left fielder for the Orioles that we lost in the Rule 5 draft that's going to hit 40 home runs this year? Can't even think of his name right now, but if you look at a lot of these deals over the last few years that we've given up on players because they've had so much depth, what bothered me is they didn't trade Tyler Freeman. They didn't trade Rocchio. After, now I think we're fortunate enough where you can move Jimenez back to shortstop in a year or two and bring Bazan up and put him at second.
Yeah, his time.
So I don't think it matters.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun to see him when he gets to the big.
He's a real talent. He walks a lot. I think we could see him up as early as late next year, or starting the year, possibly the beginning of the following season, 26.
Sure.
But I think we'll see him probably late 25 next year. I mean, he actually performed really well in high A ball with the Captains this year. Struck out a little too much, but he had a very high walk rate, high OBP, and his OPS was above 800 from what I recall. In a short period of time there, after not playing baseball for an entire month.
Yeah, there's a talent. That is real talented.
He's really, really impressive. I'm very glad they took him over Charlie Condon. I think the other player from that draft that's going to be a star is you've got the guy Williams from Tennessee who got drafted by the Angels. And I think Nick Kurtz, who got drafted by the A's, who got promoted to AA after 5-6 games, 8 games maybe. He was promoted to AA almost immediately. He's going to be a stud too. I think Charlie Condon's one of those guys that really shined at Georgia, but I think he could still be an unbelievable player. But if you look at his strikeout rate down in single A, he might have a long path to get to the majors. Also, I think Weatherholt, who was originally projected as the first overall pick, has done a good job at the Cardinals too.
Let me ask one final question about the Tribe here, and we'll wrap this up.
Sure.
There might be one addition to the roster that the Tribe could make, like the free agency period. You can't trade, right?
There is the waivers now.
Yeah, like they went last year. They tried to go.
They did that to block the Twins and they got Lucas Giolito and 2 other players too that they got.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but it failed miserably, and they lost right away when getting them. And it was the end of the season right then and there. They were like right in the thick of things. They were 4 or 5 games out. Could never get over the hump last year, and they just buried themselves at the end.
Well, my question is about the potential of adding a player to the Tribe, and I've been saying this for a long time. I was curious to see if either of you have thoughts on Trevor Bauer.
He's blackballed.
Yeah, I can't see. You know what, Brian? I mean,
I'd be all for it.
He could get people out, but I don't think he's ever going to pitch in.
I'll tell you this right now: if he was going to sign with the team, he would have signed with the Tribe 3 months ago. Yeah. Okay, the guy still has his stuff. He's completely blackballed from baseball. This is when Barry Bonds got blackballed. This is Colin Kaepernick getting blackballed from the league. He's blackballed.
Yeah.
If he's still definitely good enough to pitch, he'd still be an all-star pitcher. Don't forget, this is a guy just won the Cy Young a few years ago.
And there's no team that would take a chance.
Brian, I can tell you this is not whether the team wants to sign him. This is a Major League Baseball decision.
It's above them.
And this is Rob Manfred's decision in its entirety. I've been saying at the beginning of the year, sign him, sign him, sign him, sign him. One of my buddies straight up said, he goes, whether you want him to or not, he's 100% blackballed. You think he's pitching in Mexico right now because he wants to pitch in Mexico? He's pitching there because of some, I think it has more to do than with the rape case because he was innocent.
Yeah.
He was innocent.
Yeah.
I think it was the way he opened up his mouth.
Was proven on the other side that he was being framed.
He opened up his mouth too many times, and I think also his political ideologies that he expressed and was too vocal about it, I think at the time, pissed off Major League Baseball, and I think that's why he's no longer in the league.
Exposing the Astros for cheating. They did not appreciate that.
Again,
the stadium, I get it, but is there anything that's a fatal flaw that you can I don't know. I just
here's the thing though. Anyway. Physically, can he still pitch? I go watch him in Mexico. I still follow him on Twitter. He's incredible.
He's one of the best followers on social media.
He's striking out 12, 13 guys a game.
The immaculate inning again in the playoff round.
He really is a stud. He's a great pitcher. Yeah, I don't, there are a lot of guys I didn't have to agree with. I think Kurt Schilling's a lunatic, but he's a hell of a pitcher.
Sure is. And Bauer's little crazy, but
listen, we have that all the time. There are guys in every sport that you don't have to sit there and agree with. Like, I don't agree with Kyrie Irving politically, okay? I think Kyrie Irving's a nut job, but he's a hell of a basketball player.
Look how crazy Albert was,
Yeah. And Albert ran over some kids.
Yeah, yes, he did.
You're here at Halloween? I'll take care of that.
He threw a baseball at a fan. I mean, at 80 miles an hour. He was nuts. I could tell you
these
that.
These guys are, again, we saw Barry Bonds get blackballed from the sport.
Yeah.
It's finally, but we knew Barry could still play. He got blackballed.
When you're blackballed, you're blackballed.
You're done.
You're done.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time because we're done here. My final question out the door. If you get to pick, you only get one and you must pick. You can decide that one of the Cleveland teams wins a championship this year, and we're just going to kind of put it between the Browns and the Guardians.
I'd be fine with either.
Pick. One of them gets to win. Who would you want to win more?
I will go with the Browns.
I'd go with the Browns, but I'd be just as happy with an Indians championship.
Yeah. Amen.
I really would. I said, I was at Game 7 of the World Series in 2016, leaving the stadium. I had tears in my eyes. It didn't hurt as bad because the Cavs had just won a few months earlier.
Right.
But it was still 4 months earlier, but it was still, buried in my mind. I went home, wouldn't turn on SportsCenter for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yep. Yeah.
Blocked the Cubs on Instagram. I still have them blocked to this day. I was devastated. I was at all 3 home games of the 97 World Series as a 10-year-old. John, I'm going to show you this real quickly. I just find this funny.
Yeah, we were just talking about sports paraphernalia before we started.
As a 10-year-old with all 3
I see your tickets.
Yep. Section 140 row K at all 3 games.
This is 97.
Yep, that was 97.
Sweet.
John, I own a couple cool pieces of memorabilia real quickly. I'm going to show you this one real quickly.
Sure, babe.
This is the original scorecard to the 1920 World Series Game 6, Dodgers, Robins versus Indians.
Was that the triple play game, or was that earlier in the series? I don't remember.
That was earlier in the series. Also, I'm a big fan of historic memorabilia. I don't know, and I'm just throwing out there's a shout out to the League Park Museum if you guys have been over there.
Yes.
I would like to go.
So,
Brian, awesome.
I actually bought. So I was on an auction site, doubly verified. I bought Tris Speaker's original key to League Park.
Wow. So the manager of the tribe back then,
Tris Speaker. I donated it back to the museum.
And he had his key to the ballpark. That's fantastic.
Donated it back to the museum. I also found at an auction, I bought a 1936 sport card with the Cleveland Crybabies lineup card with the Cleveland Indians. They were called the Crybabies in 36 against the Yankees. Awesome. So DiMaggio's in the lineup, Gehrig. So it was handwritten by the Indians manager.
That's awesome. So those are great pieces.
I've got some, if you ever come by, I've got some unbelievable pieces of memorabilia. Jesse Owens, Jackie Robinson, Michael Jordan. I also have a lineup card against the 94 Indians. One of the games was June 30th, 1994. I'm looking at it right now, where Cal Ripken at that point had owned the record, but I have the lineup card, the Indians lineup card, signed by Cal Ripken Jr. and framed.
Nice. Good stuff. That's Sindelar used to say.
Bunch of original Browns memorabilia too, like from 1946, from their first game ever. Browns Dodgers at the Rubber Bowl, where they played their first exhibition game in 46.
That was at the Rubber Bowl. You're right.
Signed by Autogram, and I have the program and everything signed in my room.
You see, recently they just finally took the last stand out or whatever of the Rubber Bowl structure, like this week or last week or so. I saw that on social media.
Yeah, crazy.
It's kind of an era that when I played defensive end for our undefeated Brunswick Blue Devils teams, played the state championship against Ignatius. That was my junior year, but. Yeah, we played in the Rubber Bowl. I got memories there. I got a sack in this.
It was a cool stadium. It really, you know,
like this, and it's a black and white picture in the Rubber Bowl, standing over the Massillon quarterback.
I appreciate the old stadiums. I really do. Especially, I love history. I cherish history. That's why I love Fenway and Wrigley. You know, just to think it's like, you know, you go to League Park and it's Babe Ruth at his 500th home run there.
It's crazy.
Maggio had the last hit of his 56-game hitting streak at that park.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
You know, if you look at the history, Cy Young opened that ballpark in 1891.
My grandfather worked a construction job, and it was just outside of the ballpark. He recalls being outside of the ballpark when games were taking place, and he was on a construction crew doing something. This is back in the 20s, 30s.
I would kill to go to a game there. You know, there's some of these old school parks like that I would have killed to go to a game with, and I'm telling you right now, would have been Sportsman's Park in St. Louis, Crosley Field in Cincinnati, you know, even the Polo Grounds, and really Ebbets Field has to be my number one other than League Park.
Yeah. That's awesome stuff, man. I love the history of all the games, and we got to preserve that. And it's cool that you have some of those.
Yeah, I really cherish my memorabilia. I've got some old Brown stuff, I actually own the old Freeway sign of the old Richfield Coliseum that I bought at an auction bought it in an open house actually like 2 years ago. And I still have it.
Johnny Sable shared a story with he and his brother on their podcast, and also did a TV piece for us about, the school down in Virginia that has the court.
Yep, I remember reading that.
the Coliseum court, and that's cool. This high school basketball team is playing their games on the actual hardwood that the Cavaliers played. So
I'm obsessed with history. I think it's one of the coolest things. I value, especially Cleveland sports history. If I have the chance to swoop this stuff at auction, even some of it I've paid ridiculous sums for, I'll say that. But if I could put it back into the museum and do that, I absolutely would. It's like when I told Ricardo, the curator of the museum, when I won the Tris Speaker key, he goes, Jeremy Fedor reached out to me. He goes, I never thought I would see this key in my lifetime. He goes, I wish the museum could have afforded it. He goes, when you brought this here, I had tears in my eyes. I was like a kid on Christmas Day when I got to the museum to see
That's awesome.
What you gave.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
Genuinely cherish my collection. And, again, if other people can enjoy a piece that, what am I going to sit there and do? Look at a key all day?
Right.
I am going to give the scorecard at one point. I'm going to put it on loan in the museum at some point soon. That what I just showed you guys, I am going to put that on loan in the museum sometime soon. But that is the official scorecard that I paid a fortune for that about a year or two ago, for that piece. And as soon as I saw 1920, I was like, I have to have it.
Yeah, I got the 1948 pennant from my dad when the Tribe won their title there, and I got
one of those donated back to the museum as well.
At the Cleveland Browns Stadium, I got the seat in front of me. I put my legs up and pushed it, and that final game before they closed out the Municipal, That one kind of ended up in an ex's dad's garage somewhere, and I kind of lost track.
I'm on my quest to find a League Park seat or an Ebbets Field seat. So, and I already got the Ebbets Field seats. I bought 2 of them at an auction. Actually, donated them to a friend whose dad was a diehard Brooklyn Dodgers fan. So,
sweet.
Well, John, I see behind you, you have your Emmys. Those are pretty nice. Those are nice sports memorabilia things for all your great work and all your decades at Channel 8. But do you have a favorite piece? Do you have a favorite piece? If there's one thing, you can grab one thing and run out the door.
Yeah. Well, I was mentioning it to you. I actually don't even have it with me. I got it in safekeeping somewhere else. I have a 64 white Cleveland Browns football signed by all the Browns. So
that's cool.
That's pretty cool. And that used to be on the high shelf of my mom's and dad's rec room up until when they both passed away 10, 12 years ago. And that's a favorite piece. Other than I was saying to Brian earlier, I didn't really collect it, as much when I was in the business. Obviously there's rules, you can't get autographs and all that, but there's nothing stopping you from buying an artifact such as you have, Zach, on numerous occasions. You can do that, if you see an item from a ballpark or whatever. And
again, I don't ask players for autographs ever.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that are athletes, never ask them for autographs. What I will do is go and buy it at auction.
Yeah.
Another cool piece I have is a 57 Indian signed ball, graded 9.5 Maris signature. Roger Maris rookie signature.
Nice. Yeah. That's sweet.
Right there.
Yeah. You had, you had Herb Score and guys like that on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was his rookie year 55 or 57? I can't recall.
Maris?
He wasn't on the 54 team, so it had to be
Herb Score or Maris?
Herb, yeah.
I have a 55 ball sitting. Hold on, real quickly.
Herbie might have been a rookie in 55. I don't have it in front of me. But that's a piece.
We've had so many great players roll through Cleveland over the years.
We have
great players.
We really have.
Do you think we have a disproportionate amount of non-championships, John?
This ball's signed by the 55 Indians.
That's a what? 55
this ball's 55 Indians.
Nice.
This ball's 55. This ball right here is this is signed by this is the 57 Indians with a Roger Maris rookie signature, graded at a 9.5. And it's right at the top right here.
Nice.
So right at the top.
Yeah, I see. That's sweet.
One of my favorite pieces.
Sometimes it's not just the pieces. So I was so fortunate to be around some of these historical figures, to go up into the press box and just sit down with Bob and talk about what it was like pitching to DiMaggio or whatever, and those are I don't have anything that, says that I did that per se, but it's up here, those great
John, I've seen you on TV probably thousands of life hours. So, trust me, we know you were there.
Yeah. But just the beauty is that I've got those great memories of what's the kid that came up for Washington about 15, 18 years ago?
Strasburg.
Bingo.
I was at his first start at Jacobs Field.
Well, I was upstairs in the press box sitting next to Bob, asking him about the kid, and I can still hear him in my mind, saying, he's got a great fastball. Yeah, I like how he's throwing the ball, but he's got to watch out for this. How's his curveball? But
and it was amazing because he was such a phenom coming out of San Diego State. He literally was he was the net. And by the way, when he was healthy, he won a World Series with the Nationals.
He was tremendous.
He was phenomenal.
Yes, he was.
But the kid couldn't stay healthy.
He couldn't stay healthy. Yeah,
injuries are always the worst part of sports. The what ifs, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. If Bo Jackson played, if we could go down that a million.
Yeah, I know. We could always do a what if show too. So, but
we do our
highly regarded prospect.
We should do our NBA redraft show. We like to go back 5 or 10 years later and go, can you believe they took him at 3? He should have been 28 if he's lucky. It's so interesting.
I think, Brian, our first conversation we ever had was when you found me on Twitter back when I used to have a big following when I actually worked in basketball. I'm no longer, I'm in real estate now, but when I was tweeting about the Cavs Irving trade and what a steal, the first to get the first round pick from the Clippers was.
Yeah.
Baron Davis, right?
Yep. For Mo Williams for Baron Davis.
Yes.
And what a steal that was. And I remember just tweeting about it. And Brian reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to come on and do this radio show? Sure. Oh, come on.
Sure, why not? Yeah, I had John. John, you were one of our first guests. Absolutely.
Long time ago.
Season 1. You've been here since season 1, and it's great checking in with you. It's great having you back, Zach. Like it's
great chat
season. It's time to fire it up again.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, seriously, great chat with y'all. Really
Brian,
fun.
And thank you again. I'd love to be on again in the near future. You know, I'd love to do this again. I feel like this used to be a weekly occurrence between us.
It was, and you and I will get back to it. I won't bug you that much, but I do want to ask you on your way out, John, tell us about your new show, what you're doing. I saw that the graphic is you up in a hot air balloon, I believe, an adventurer.
I mean, I started a podcast in 2019, and I did like 90 episodes. Or no, I'm sorry. I did like 65 episodes. And then the pandemic came, and so I kind of suspended it for a year and a half or so. Long story short, I retired in February of 2022, and about June or July of 2022, so roughly 2 years ago, I fired it back up. So I've done like 90 episodes since then, so about 160, and I just have fun with it. It's called Telich Talks, and it's like this week I'm talking to Brian Vern. I did talk to him, and he is the CEO and founder of Wave Sports and Entertainment. They are the guys that produce Kelsey Brothers podcast. They produce Carmelo Anthony's, Paul Pierce, Paul George's, Bomani Jones. And what's cool about them is that, you know, they're thinking new age media. He says our audience is the digitally native people. That is a kid who's only known digital content, whether it's internet-based, direct reel, social media, Instagram. So, you know, he's a Cleveland kid, played baseball at Oberlin College, started this company 7 years ago, and it's going great guns. They just had that big contract that the Kelsey signed with Wondery and Amazon, $100 million. So that's the type of stuff, Cleveland-based stuff, but a lot of times, if it's not Cleveland, it's someone who's inspiring. Once in a while, it's just an X's and O's things. Like last week, I did Lance Riesland, Cleveland.com, and you know he's a former high school football coach. His father was a coaching legend at Garfield Heights and Brunswick and many of the schools here in Northeast Ohio. So that's what I do. It's just an old man talking to people about sports. I enjoy it and appreciate the chance to plug it. But it was great spending this time just yakking about sports with you guys.
Yeah, John, it was a pleasure to get to be on the show with you. Brian, thank you again for having me on. And John, pleasure getting to talk to you for the last 2 hours.
You bet.
No,
fantastic.
I've had a blast, and hopefully the Browns will come through in the clutch. The Tribe will do some great things, and I'm sure we may have a chance to talk again in the near future. So, John, tell us one more time where to find the show, the name of it one more time.
It's called Telich Talks. Telich Talks, and it's on Apple, Spotify, all the podcast platforms, and wherever you get podcasts, as they say these days. So check it out.
Good. Perfect. John, appreciate it. Zach, we will talk. We will get you baback again soon. And gentlemen, thank you so much for your time joining us on the Unhappy Hour today. And until next time, we appreciate it.